was struggling with what to do for this summative, so I went for a walk. And then it hit me. I thought back to a conversation I had a year ago. Over the past year, conflict in Gaza has been a contentious issue. Every day, I walk past stickers and flyers and posters, trying to convey information, to convince you that what's on this sticker is the right opinion. Like these ones here, they use the aesthetics and branding of Run DMC to say, fuck Hamas, or fuck the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So I remembered a year ago coming across the Hebrew Wikipedia page for the war in Gaza, and specifically a section titled The Campaign for Global Public Opinion. And then I wondered about the reliability of the very article I was reading. And then I thought about how would I compare Wikipedia articles for this event in languages I don't speak. To start, I thought about which languages. I ended up choosing English, Farsi, Hebrew, and Arabic. I chose English as it's my native language, the language I know how to do natural language processing in, and the global lingua franca. Farsi, as Iran, the country with the largest number of Farsi speakers, is a direct supporter of groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Arabic, as it's the language predominantly spoken by Palestinian people, and also the liturgical language of Islam, the predominant religion in the Palestinian territories, and Hebrew, the sole official language of the State of Israel. Also to consider is that English and Arabic are both pluricentric languages, while Farsi and Hebrew are both monocentric, and English and Farsi, although distantly related, are both Indo-European languages, while Hebrew and Arabic are Semitic. So to get my data, I used Google Translate's auto-translate option on websites to translate it all to English, and then I downloaded each page as a PDF. I then used PyPDF to convert the PDFs into strings for analysis. At this point, I feel I should state that the reliance on machine translation in this work is a significant limitation, and that it may miss some of the nuances that could be picked up by a human translator. So from here, my immediate end goal was a table of words from each language Wikipedia article, and how often they appeared in each Wikipedia article. I started by writing some code that would first identify and remove stop words. So stop words are things like to, and, for, whatever. And then the rest of the code was taking the stop word free text and turning it into just a list of words. I also lemmatized the words, so that involves taking something like running and turning it into run, or is and turning it into a be. So we have less words for a given meaning. And that gives us this table, of which I've shown the top 21. As you can see in the table, the most common words are typically relating to time, referencing, or conflict, again unsurprising, and then some other ones that I classified as other but also make sense within the context of the article. Just for fun, I had some friends try to guess, based on what they know already, which language article had what words as its most frequent, and this is their result. So returning to our table of the top 21 words, you can see that most of the words across the articles and languages are the same, though Hebrew is the only one that notably includes terrorist or Hezbollah or Lebanon. This gives us some interesting information, like terrorist and missile being some of the most used words on the Hebrew page, but this doesn't really tell us if they're used significantly more than relative to the rest of the corpus, so I used TF-IDF to find out. I'm not going to go into the math right now, but term frequency, inverse document frequency, effectively punishes words that are common across the whole corpus, while rewarding ones that are common in a single document. So this is a really good way to see if something is more common in one document versus the rest. As you can see, the website Ynet making it into both the top TF-IDF scoring and the top word frequency scoring might suggest the Hebrew language Wikipedia article on the page is overly reliant on a single source. From here, I decided to try and examine how similar all of these articles were. I used Jacquard similarity, both taking into account and not taking into account the frequency of words, to get two different metrics for each comparison. Jacquard similarity effectively measures what's in the middle of the Venn diagram of the two sets. Our two most similar sets, when not taking into account frequency, were English and Arabic. This is not surprising because they're the most widely spoken languages. Our two least similar were Hebrew and Farsi, which could be unsurprising given that both Iran and Israel are on opposite sides of this conflict. However, we're not just looking at unique words, but also accounting for frequency. All of the sets are pretty different. Though Farsi is the most different to Hebrew and English, it's also slightly more similar to Arabic. The other way I assessed similarity was using the VAD model of sentiment analysis. The VAD model puts words on a three-dimensional set of axes, measuring valence, which is happiness, arousal, excitement, and dominance, control. Our different language articles here are separated by color. I tried removing a few to see if any of them had any interesting patterns, if anything was omitted, but if I'm being honest, they mostly cluster in the same places. What this tells us is, although the frequency of words may be different, the unique ones are not. It's broadly like the same kind of sentiment being expressed by each article. So to check this, I summed the V, the A, and the D scores of each article, looking for the highest to see if, anything was particularly happier, more aroused, more dominant, or whatever. And I found that Hebrew had higher on all three. And then I realized that the articles were different lengths, and all I've done is I've just essentially measured which article is the longest. So here are the averages instead, and as you can see, there's really not much deviation. So what does this really all tell us? Well, if we use the English language Wikipedia page as a baseline for comparison, Hebrew isn't that much more different than the other two languages are from English. Now, obviously, this doesn't use word embeddings or close reading or anything at all. And the presence of words doesn't tell you much about their meaning just by looking at them out of context. But at least purely from content, it's kind of difficult to say that either the Farsi, the Arabic, or the Hebrew Wikipedias are on any one side of the fight for public perception. And any major differences may be as a result of things having different levels of importance to the speakers of these languages. Now, these methods have limitations. Here's what I would do if it was not 9 p.m. before submitting this. Firstly, the use of machine translation is a huge limitation here. I had entire sets of text in my data that was unusable because of the poor translation. Getting actual speakers of these languages to translate would be much better. Additionally, the use of a single page to represent each language isn't good enough, when we can get more accurate and representative data by going through 5 or 6 per Wikipedia. In terms of method, it would have been useful to examine word embeddings, so see what words show up next to each other, for example, to do with sentiment analysis or TF-IDF. Like the word kill appears in all of them, but it may appear next to, say, Palestinians or Israelis more in one versus the other, and that would be very useful to know to understand the differences between these articles. Anyway, if I keep talking, I'm going to miss the deadline, so I really hope someone carries this forward, and thank you for watching.